morning and welcome to Cover 2 Cook. We are on episode 33. We are having our beautiful Sunday of NFL. We're going to recap the NCAA on Saturday as it became an upset Saturday. We're going to talk about our betting, which wasn't great, but then we'll give our must-watch for the NFL and our bets. But before I go too far, let me bring on my co-host, Mr. Tim Cook. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. Yes, we had a lot of exciting games, a lot of upsets that we didn't expect. Yeah, and our betting did not do good because of that as well.
I agree. I would love to see how everyone did on the betting because, what upsets we saw, unless people called it off of, it's just those teams that had chances of upsetting and they broke through yesterday. But let's start off right off the bat with Ohio State versus Penn State. Now, Ohio State put themselves in a hole with a 10-point deficit with that pick six, and it looked like Ohio State wasn't going to come out of it. But what did you think about that game?
Yeah, Ohio State got down 10-0. I'm like, oh, maybe Penn State is for real. But that quarterback, Will Howard, settled down, and he had to pass to Ibuka, made it 10-7. I went, here they come. I mean, they were right back in this game, And then the Penn State got a taunting call, that extends drive. You have to play a damn near perfect game to beat Ohio State. Ask Oregon. Oregon did. But you can't have stupid penalties extending drives. You cannot give Ohio State extra chances. They will take advantage of it. And they did. They went right down. And, Will Howard did look shaky at the beginning, but he settled down. But, that one play where he's running down the sideline and he's got, they're up 14-10 at that time. And he bobbles it. The ball gets punched out. Luckily, it rolls right over the pylon and in the back of the end zone for a touchback. It was just, they were just making key position every time. And, Penn State was 0 for 3 in the red zone. You cannot do that. You cannot come away with touchdowns. And that last play at the end of the game where they had 4 possessions at the 3 to punch it in, and they could not do it. James Franklin, what play call are you doing? You just ran it up the middle, almost 3 times, and then the fourth one you try to have that quarterback throw it in triple coverage. Well, how about a play action pass or something? That 44 for Penn State was hot at the time. Why didn't you do a play action and get him out to the right? And then they at the end they just milked the clock the last 5 minutes for the win. It was just I can see why he's just not a big time coach.
Yeah, it just felt like Ohio State was always one step ahead of Penn State, right? It just seemed like they were, like when Penn State was like, "Oh, we got this," Ohio State would stop it, right? Obviously, the 2 red zones, you're within the 5-yard line, you come out with 0 points. One being an amazing interception, right? That
was pretty. Yeah,
nothing you can do with that, right?
No.
You put the ball where wide receiver could have got it, instead the DB rips it out of his hands. But on the other side, when you look at Ohio State, like Ohio State is touchable. They're not untouchable. Obviously, Oregon showed that, but Penn State, if you just would have played a better game, you probably would have came home with this one. I totally agree with you with the play action or just even a boot. You know what I mean? Like the quarterback just boots out. Like I always think of when I think of the most famous boot in my head is like when Peyton Manning did the boot and the camera didn't even know that he had the ball until he scores the touchdown.
Right.
Like you got to do more than just, you're not going to out physical Ohio State. You don't have more talent than Ohio State. So you have to play your game. Stop trying to play their game. You had Ohio State on the ropes. This was the game that you had them on the ropes because Will Howard wasn't playing the greatest. So I just think, Will Howard comes back with a couple touchdowns, but he just made errors too throughout the game that that's not going to win you a national championship. I'm going to tell you right now. There's too many good teams that are going to take advantage of that. And we will talk throughout the rest of the NCAA, but there's a lot of teams that can beat you when you don't play at your level. So, yeah, it was a good 11 o'clock game. I definitely think exactly what I said on the last podcast. If it was a night game, it might have been a little bit different, and I think that's what Penn State's going to say. But they're also going to say a lot of that's on the coach, and we're tired of losing these top 5 games against Michigan, Ohio State when they're having their, type of season.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they're having a good. That was their second loss. And he might be on the hot seat because he cannot win. He can't beat Ohio State. Plain simple. He can't beat them. He hasn't beat them in 8 tries the last 8 games, 8 years. So I mean, I didn't get, and I don't know maybe why he didn't do the play action at the end was because Aller's, he's got a bum ankle. Maybe he didn't want to do it, but he didn't look bad. It's just like you have to play a perfect game against Ohio State. You cannot let dumb penalties and stupid, because they did give you the game. That fumble that Will Howard had, I mean, he scores there, it's 21-10. This game could be about, I was thinking to myself, this game could be over. I mean, but Ohio State gave you all the opportunities, and you didn't take advantage of them. And, eventually you've got to do that if you want to get over the top.
Yeah, and it puts them both with one loss in the Big Ten, with obviously Oregon losing and Penn State losing. This is only their first loss, but this is a huge loss. This just shows that Penn State's just not there. They're just not.
No.
And how many more years are we going to say of that with this coach? And it sucks. I mean, it sucks to think that you don't want to see anyone ever get fired, but I don't think this is going to help recruiting. This isn't going to help the situation of trying to say why we deserve to be in the playoffs. It doesn't help, just things like this, because you've had too many close games throughout the year anyways. You needed to win this game to say, hey, we are a playoff team. I mean, but that takes us to our second game, was Pitt versus SMU. And I think we got to see in this game that SMU is the real deal. Now, we're going to talk about ACC because we gave a lot of credit to them earlier, or the last podcast, and saying that, oh man, there's a lot of great teams in the ACC and stuff. But when I looked at this game, SMU had to win because Pitt would have made them now with 2 losses. It keeps them at a perfect 5-0 in the ACC. But in the Pitt side of it, you just let that second quarter get away from you. I mean, SMU puts up 24 points in the second quarter while you only score 3 in the half. I mean, at halftime, this game was damn near over. And Pitt had to come out and just start the game off right off the bat. And they couldn't, or the second half, I'm sorry. They had to start that second half if you wanted to come back, and they couldn't. And then SMU just kind of rolled the coaster at the end and just said, okay, well, this is how we're going to – I think SMU's for real. I did not see as much publicity about, the program's back, and maybe if they had a little bit of maybe a perfect season going, they'd be talking like that. But they have a perfect ACC record right now. And with some of these teams that lost yesterday, I think it could be them and Miami going at it at the end of the year.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Pitt, and Pittsburgh was known for their defense. Boy, they got steamrolled. That defense got steamrolled. I mean, before you knew it, they were down big. And like you said, this puts SMU in the driver's seat for the ACC championship. I mean, this game was over early. So,
yeah, it stinks too, just because with being a night game, I almost want to say it was just too big for Pitt. When I think of Pitt, I always think that they have like a decent squad, and then they get a little shine and they decide to just poop all over the shine, right? Like it's just, it always seems like when they have a chance to like, okay, hey, people are keeping like actually looking at us now, then they just go, okay, well, we're not going to play anymore. I just, they didn't play their type of game and that's what stinks is this game I thought could have been a lot better. It came out to be 45-20 or 48-25, but I mean, SMU just the quarterback 2 touchdowns. The Pitt threw an interception. They ran SMU could run the ball wherever they want. Pitt couldn't get the run attack go. It was definitely a David versus Goliath when you looked at it, but when you look on paper, they're not that way. So I think Pitt just didn't play the game that they should have, and unfortunately, that just hurts you. This is not this is a year where you can lose and still have a chance. But you can't lose games like this when you've already lost other games, right? Or you possibly have more future losses coming ahead. This is a game
the opponent gets a little bit stronger.
Yes. Yeah. So, unfortunately, not as good of a game, but it was good to see SMU because now we're going to talk about another ACC team, Virginia Tech versus Syracuse. Now, I'm just going to start out with this. What a great game it was. Syracuse rallies for a 21-3 deficit midway through the third quarter. And I got to say it now because we bet a SOTY on it. I'm taking that SOTY because Allen for Syracuse runs it in overtime when Virginia Tech gets the ball back. They fumble, ending the game. But this Allen for Syracuse had 3 scores for 121 yards on 21 carries. a stud muffin. But what I got to say on the other side of this Virginia Tech, and I think if you would have known this, because we didn't know this until the game started, the starting quarterback didn't play, and their running back, which was before the game was already announced that he wasn't playing, Virginia Tech was just kind of beat up a little bit. And that, unfortunately, didn't allow for them to kind of play the game that they should have. But they let this one slip away. What did you think about this one?
Yeah, and Kyle McCord came back, after throwing them 5 interceptions last week. He looked really good, So that I thought that, when you play at home, that does help, a little home cooking. But yeah, and then they had that play at the end in overtime, and it was just like, oh, that was just. But so I thought this was a good game,
Yeah, it definitely came down to the end, and Kyle McCord definitely played way better than obviously throwing 5 interceptions. I thought Syracuse, yes, you give up 31 points. That is a lot, but you gave up 14 right off the start. And that's what hurt them. What Syracuse was down on this one, and it was like, okay, and then the offense started to get things going. And really what it was is when they started getting things going, they started running the ball. I mean, they were doing too much of the pass. And I think it's what happened the week before when he threw all those interceptions was they got behind. So then they rely on him too much, but he doesn't have the weapons like he had at Ohio State, right? He doesn't have weapons. So, and well, it's not just say it's the guys that are catching the ball. I mean, he also is throwing. It's the reason he left Ohio State. Let's be real. But it just was a type of game where they're like, okay, play our game. And they did, and they came back in this. The strip at the end was kind of, but I think it definitely says that Virginia Tech quarterback, that backup, he was a good quarterback. He's not just a backup. Like I could see possibly seeing his name eventually at the end of the year on the transfer portal or anything like that, because I think we'll hear about him again. It's just unfortunate that that's the last moment you have right there was a fumble to end a game in overtime.
Yeah, yeah. And you're noticing with a lot of these colleges, their backups are just about as good as the starters. And some of these major programs, they've got some decent backups that could be playing at other places and shining.
Well, and I think that's just because of the recruiting, or not recruiting, but the transfer portal. Because
I agree.
If you're not playing, you're going to go somewhere, and you're wanting within a year to 2 years to be playing. So, but let's go through the rest of the NCAA. We had Oregon beating up on Michigan 38-17. Oregon is in a league of their own right now when it comes to the Big Ten. Georgia has to come back in the second half. I was a little worried at halftime, but Georgia wins 34-20. Miami 53-31. I don't know if they'll stop you on defense, but they'll outscore you on the offensive side. Tennessee beats Kentucky. Had to have a second half spurt to get this one going, but 28-18. South Carolina upsets Texas A&M 44-20. Texas Tech upsets Iowa State 23-22 with the last second touchdown. Louisville goes into Clemson and puts a beating on them 33-21. Indiana scores their seventh game over 40 points of 47-10 on Michigan State. Kansas State gets beat last night. Houston wins 24-19. Ole Miss scores 63 points to beat Arkansas. Army beats Air Force 20-3. And Minnesota beats Illinois 25-17. What do you think about this weekend?
A lot of upsets this weekend, and we said we did bad on our betting. Illinois comes out and just, I don't get, I don't think that their coach that, or not coach, the quarterback is, that team has got to play from out front. They cannot play from behind. They just don't have the weapons to come from behind, because they got behind and they had the ball with less than 2 minutes to go, and then the offensive line, they were driving down the field, and then all of a sudden they sack and the game was over. It's just they just can't. And Miami, I mean, they were down by double digits, and they came back and beat Duke, at home. It just seemed like you said, in the ACC, everybody is just, they beat up on everybody this year, this weekend. And now you've got two teams that probably nobody had, being at the top of the ACC.
Yeah, I mean, Miami's just got so much talent. The only thing with Miami is their offense is so good that you're like, well, they can outscore every team. But you don't want to get into shootouts. You don't want to get into shootouts when you play against an SEC team that can run the ball down your throat. because you better score then because they're going to run it down. And that's the only thing with Miami that I'm like, yes, man, they scored 63 points. Holy crap. But it's like, or 53 points. Holy crap. But you gave up 31. Like,
Yeah.
like the over on that, Jesus. I mean, 84 points total. Like, that's the one thing I will say. Texas A&M losing to South Carolina, definitely home field advantage. But the quarterback that we've talked so highly about, I mean, just the second half, but the first two possessions they had coming out of halftime, they had 3rd and 1, and they run the ball, get stopped on one of the two possessions. They go on it, they don't get it. It's like, yeah, South Carolina just had their number. Texas Tech, unfortunately, Iowa State. You can't let these teams stick around. You can't let them stick around, and they beat you. And then
and they were just throwing the ball down the field. I mean, they made that Iowa State defense, which is supposed to be one of the better ones in the nation. They just threw the ball. I mean, the first half they were just throwing the ball all around, and they could. Iowa State. It looked like to me they were after coming off a bye that they looked lethargic. They just did not look like the team they've been playing all year.
Very true. So you ended up with what on your bets?
Oh, 0 for 3. The Minnesota one, yeah, they beat them outright. The Louisville, they got beat, just spanked, So, yeah, I went 0 and 3. Not good.
Yeah, I ended up 1 and 3. Luckily, Ohio State covers with that -3, but otherwise, Texas A&M loses after they were supposed to give 3, and then we both had the Clemson -10, and they decided to take a Dabo in the middle of the field. So, yeah, that ends us. So, like we said, we've always said with betting, like, please bet responsibly. I will say I would love to see what everyone else did in this situation because the dogs it was a heavy dog weekend. Like, it was just,
most definitely.
So, and you're going to have that sometimes, but I mean, I just feel like this was an aggressive dog weekend. So, but that moves us to the NFL. We got some must-watch games for NFL this week. We have Broncos versus Ravens to start us off. Good offensive Ravens versus a good defensive Broncos. What do you think about this game?
Yeah, we're going to see, Denver's been playing a lot better. This is a litmus test on how well they've been playing because this Baltimore team is really good. They're one of the best offenses in the NFL against a pretty good, Denver's defense. You got Lamar and Henry on the one side against, the DC for the Broncos, Vance Joseph, and they've got pretty good inside linebackers and Bonito and Browning. So they'll probably have to be spies. They'll have to spy on Lamar. Just keep him in line. Do not, just keep an eye on him, because he's dangerous with running and passing. Also, the Broncos, they have to get ready for the passing game as well but I think they'll handle that with Patrick Surtain, in the backfield. Broncos offense is led by Bo Nix. He's going up against the worst passing defense. So I think that Nix is going to have a pretty good day today. I think if that offensive line could give him time and let him throw down the field, that back end is not good for Baltimore. And so they're going to have to get Courtland Sutton early, and then the Ravens safeties, they've been out of position all year. So I mean, I think there's a lot of opportunity going down the field. If the Broncos get the pass game going, I can see maybe I smell an upset maybe.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely looking at the 1-2 combo of the Ravens versus that defense for sure. Now, Lamar's been great against the blitz, which usually you are when you got the feet underneath like you do like Lamar. You can get out of a lot of these blitzes. And then you see Denver. When has Denver been most productive on defense? And that's when they can blitz and get to the home, right? Now, a lot of teams are that way, right? When I blitz and I get to home. But when we watch back at the Denver game against the Chargers, they didn't blitz as much. Well, then the Chargers took a handle to them, right?
Yeah.
If it's a situation where they can't keep contained when they blitz, they're not going to be able to blitz. And then I think that's when the Ravens are able to take control of this game. I think it's so funny we're talking about this on the Ravens offense versus the Denver's defense, but then when you go the opposite way, you do have a okay Denver offense. Bo Nix is still learning, right? And then it's a lot of can you get the running attack going? And can you get these wide receivers open? And then you have a Ravens defense that 1 week they look really good and 1 week they don't. And 1 week they're getting to the quarterback and man, wow, that Van Noy, he's got a great season. And then you're like, oh wait, he still plays in the NFL the next week. Like they're so inconsistent on the other side of the ball that you're going to have to lean on your your strong points in this game. And I think where Denver has to lean on this defense hard. If you can't keep Lamar contained, this is going to be a long game because I don't think the passing attack, yes, they have Deontay Johnson after this big trade over this week, but how much is he going to really be a part of this game? I mean, how much is he actually going to bring an influence in it? They got Zay Flowers and they got Mark Andrews and they got Isaiah Likely and they got other Rashad Bateman.
Yeah.
But they've had them all year, and they haven't really done much. So, and I will say, as a person that has Derrick Henry on my fantasy, let's get that passing game going because that opens the. Right now, a lot of teams are stacking the box because that's the only thing you got going for you. So, I think this would be a great game. Denver's got the Ravens this week and Kansas City next week. So, welcome to the gauntlet of the two teams.
Yeah, we're going to see how good the Denver is with those next two games.
Yeah, well, and I can see it being a low-scoring game. It's just one of these games where I'm not betting on it. I'm staying away from it. I would rather enjoy it just because these two teams, and it's still, yes, we're still almost halfway through the season. So some of these teams are going to hit a jump or hit a spark, and it's going to change how we looked at them in the beginning of the year. But like these two teams, I just feel like have been way too inconsistent to try to even touch this game at all today.
Yeah, and I could see them if the Broncos lose, covering the spread because Baltimore's defense seems like in the fourth quarter they just kind of just say, okay, they'll get out to a big lead, and then all of a sudden, now they only win by 7. So I could see maybe a backdoor cover on this game.
Agree. And actually, after you said that, I totally agree with that because it's like the Ravens offense is like, hey, we're going to run the ball. Okay, and then they run the ball, game pretty successful. And then it's like, hey, it's the fourth quarter. We're going to run the ball to eat the clock. And then the Ravens offense is like, yeah, we can't do that anymore. Like it's just
right.
But it takes us to our second game of must watch this week, and it's an NFC showdown. The Lions versus the Packers. So, the Lions a couple weeks ago had the Vikings. They slayed the Vikings. Now they're the number one in the NFC North. Now they got to take on the G-Men or the cheeseheads of the Packers. Now these two safeties for these two teams, Kirby Johnson for the Lions and Xavier McKinney are having great seasons with intercepting the ball, playing great defense. Lions are, playing great football. Since Love's came back, the Green Bay Packers have looked good. I just think the biggest point of this game is Love is going to have to be smart with the football because Detroit is playing way too good of football right now to give them more opportunities what they'll already have. You cannot give them red zone plays because of injury or because of interceptions or turnovers or anything like that. So when you look at this game, Love has to play very well and smart. I mean, he doesn't have to have a 400-yard game or a 300-yard game. He doesn't have to have a crazy stat game. He just got to have a 0 in that interceptions, or the offense needs to have 0 on the fumbles for this game. But what do you think about this game?
Yeah, another thing too, this is not one of my games I'm going to bet on, but when was the last time you heard the Packers as an underdog, 3.5 point underdog at home? You just don't hear that very much, And if Detroit could, that offense is clicking right now. I mean, they put up 52 points last week, but in 3 quarters. So I mean, the Packers defense is going to have to show up, or this could be a runaway really early. So I think the big key on this is going to be DN Kenny Clark for the Packers against Frank Ragnow too. That's going to be, can they keep Goff upright, because they've had 15 sacks in the last 5 games. If those guys get to him really early, it could be a long day for Jared Goff and this offense, So, and I think it could come down to who has the most takeaways, as the Packers have 19 takeaways, which is number 1 in the NFL, but Detroit's number 2 on their defense. So, I mean, that's going to be a big key too at +10. I think Detroit's defense keeps playing the way they have been. I can see a Super Bowl in their picture.
Yeah, unfortunately, as a Vikings fan, when I saw the greatness of the Lions this year so far and how hot they are, I think for the Green Bay, we'll see it because they're both divisions, so we'll see Vikings play Green Bay eventually too. But looking at how the Vikings played against the Lions, it came down in the end. That was at home. Now Green Bay is at home against the Lions. The Lions are setting themselves up that with the win today, this really puts them out in front. And I will say, puts them top 2 at the power rankings. Maybe them and the Chiefs. And I mean, Chiefs are finding ways to win games, but they're not dominant in their wins. So, and that's what Detroit's doing. I feel like they're just beating teams up. They're beating the hell out of teams, and the way that they've been playing this year, I don't see a team that. But can they keep it going? And I think that's the biggest thing with this whole thing is, can they keep it going? Can Jared Goff keep playing this way? You know, I mean, he's never been a Hall of Fame person in my mind, but the way he's playing this year, it's like, damn, where has it been the past years? Now he had a good year last year, don't get me wrong, but it always feel like he would always find a game that he would just kind of take a poop, right? And so, but we'll see. We'll see if they keep it going. It's gonna be a great NFC showdown. It's gonna be ball. Both teams have a good running attack with Aaron Jones, and then the two, what do they call it? Sonic and Boom, or
Gibbs and Montgomery.
Yeah, they have a new nickname.
I heard that. Yeah,
but
also too, Detroit, which I did. Detroit has won 4 of the last 5 games against Green Bay. I think when they played, Detroit beat them at Green Bay, and then Green Bay last year went up to Detroit. I think that was Thanksgiving and beat them. So I mean, that's another deal too. Is that Detroit's had their number in the last 3 years. So,
well, and it's always seemed like, the Detroit was the laughing stock of the.
Yeah, not anymore.
No, and if anything, now they are the, with Bears still kind of trying to understand where they're at. The Vikings trying to grow with a star wide receiver, not a star quarterback. It is one of these things where you'll kind of see, but that takes us to our final must-watch game. Now, this game, you look at the records and you're like, why is this a game that must-watch? But it's the Rams versus the Seahawks. Rams look like a whole different team since last Thursday, and the Seahawks haven't looked really good since the start of the season. So what do you think about this game?
Yeah, this is a NFC showdown. These two teams, both of them need a win to stay with Arizona. They've got to get because Arizona right now is up there right now with all the wins. DK Metcalf, he's going to be out for this game. So that's going to be a killer for Seattle. And Puka Nacua, I think it looks like he's going to start as of right now. He's dealing with a knee injury. But without Metcalf, Geno Smith has got to start getting the ball down the field. He has got to get JSN involved, Tyler Lockett involved, Jeff Lebo involved, or Bobo. I think it's Bobo. But anyway, and even Kenneth Walker, getting some passes to him out of the backfield. They've got to get that going. As for the Rams, they have to establish the run. Kyron Williams has been doing awesome, because this run defense of Seattle's has given up 160 yards per game on the ground. Wow, that's a lot of yards in the last 5 games. So I also think too, this Rams team is a lot better with Kupp and Nacua. I mean, I know they're 2-4, 3-4. I mean, this team is a lot better than 3-4. Stafford needed him to, get them back. This game opened up as a pick 'em. I am actually going to bet on this game, so I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah, me too. And I'll kind of add on to that it is. I mean, you got 4-4 Arizona, you got 4-4 San Francisco, you got 4-4 at Seattle, and then you got 3-4 Rams. Well, then you look at it and you're like, okay, but the Rams haven't had this team until last Thursday. And Kyron Williams is having a good year. Can he stay healthy? Because he always kind of finds his way on the injury report at some point. But like with this offense, the way it's playing, but you look at these other teams, Arizona is so inconsistent. San Francisco's got about every injury in the book. And Seattle, now without DK, they just forgot how to play football, it seems like. I mean, they started the season, 3-0 or almost 4-0?
Yeah. 3-0.
Yeah, 3-0. And they only won 1 out of the past 5 games. Like they've lost everything of how. And I definitely agree when you look at the Seahawks, they have to get the passing game started because then that opens up the run. I mean, I've watched their games because I got Kenneth Walker on my and Jackson Smith and Najigba on my fantasy, and it seems like they just were like, oh, hey, it's first down, we run the ball. Second down, we run the ball. Third down, we'll throw the ball. Okay, we're punting. And it's just like, whoa, we got to do more than that. We can't do the standard run, pass. Like, it has to open up. You got to get more people involved. I believe isn't Noah Fant a part of their team?
Yeah, and he's questionable. No, he's not even playing. He's out this week.
He's out. So,
him and Metcalf.
Yeah, it's just, and so it's one of these things where this NFC West is open. It's wide open. And the way I look at the Rams, which I understand one game, what do you think? It was a Thursday night, questionable call at the end, and the Vikings, blah, 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 whatever. Puka, I don't believe any injury if he has anymore because he wasn't even supposed to play last Thursday, and here he comes and plays great game. Cooper Kupp, the way he's playing, it just opens Stafford up. Stafford
Yeah.
can be Stafford again. Now, Stafford's getting up there in age. He's not a spring chicken anymore. Can he keep that up? But this division's wide open. Everyone's at a 500 right now. Nobody's running away with it. This is a game where if the Rams win, you're like, okay, I can see the Rams running away with this one. Seahawks win, I think it opens it back up to a who's going to win the division because Arizona's got to play the Bears this weekend. And then I don't know who San Francisco's got or if they got to bye this week.
They got to buy this week.
So, I mean, you're opening if the Seattle wins, this opens the, okay, who's going to win it? But if the Rams win, even though everyone will be at pretty much the same record, I still think I'm like, okay, the Rams got the better team because they're coming off of injuries where everyone's still dealing with injuries. In Arizona, show me more. Show me more
Yeah.
than that. But yes, so let's talk about the rest of the NFL, right? So let me pull it up. So other games that are happening this week, you have Cowboys versus Falcons. Oh, 1 second. Yep, that is. Okay, so I was like, I didn't think that was the right week. So you have Cowboys
you're right.
Falcons. At your noon schedule, you have the Dolphins and the Bills with, Tua coming back. It kind of look like a different Dolphins team, but we'll see what this Bills team does. You have Raiders versus Bengals. You have Chargers versus Browns. You have Patriots and Titans, Commanders and Giants, Saints and Panthers. That all wraps up your noon time with also the Broncos and Ravens that we talked about earlier. At the 3 o'clock time, you have the Jaguars versus the Eagles, Bears and Cardinals, Lions and Packers, and Rams and Seahawks at 3 o'clock. So what do you got? 3, 4 at the 3 o'clock time. So, okay, worth the red zone. Tonight on Sunday night, you got the Colts versus the Vikings. You got Joe Flacco taking in for AR this weekend. So we'll see how that ends up for them. And then on Monday night, you have the 4-4 Buccaneers. Unfortunately, injury riddled because this could have been a great game against the Chiefs. But the 7-0 7 perfect season of the Chiefs right now on Monday night. But what do you think about this week?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good week. I think that the Chiefs, that Chiefs and Buccaneers would have been a good game if not, with the two guys going down. I think that offense is going to be, good. You got the Commanders and the Giants. Hopefully, it'll be a little bit better than they played week 2, where all it was field goals. So, so I think it should be an interesting slate of Sunday games.
Well, let's get at it. Let's get at the betting. What do you got for your first bet this weekend?
I got Chargers and Browns. Browns showed some life last week by beating the Ravens 29-24. Jameis Winston's now under center, so they look a little bit better. But this week will be a little different because they're going against a very good Charger defense under Jim Harbaugh. Chargers have the best scoring defense in the NFL. Success for the Chargers is running the football with J.K. Dobbins, and they got to throw the ball down. They'll be able to throw the ball down the field with Justin Herbert. James will have to have the turnovers to a minimum. That Charger defense is really good, and I think he cannot have a 3 interception day, or it'll be a long day. The key injury on this game is David Njoku. He's questionable right now. So if they want to, that's the biggest blow to Winston. The Chargers have covered the spread 4 of the 5 as favorites, and the Browns are 3-5 against the spread this year. The line opened up at Chargers at 2.5. Now it's 2.5 point favorite. Now it's down to 1.5. I just seen it today at a point. I think this Charger defense is for real and will create havoc on Winston. So I'll take the Chargers and the money line.
Yeah, I kind of agree with this one. I think the hype of the Cleveland was a 1 week fun, whatever you want to call it. I think we're going to get back to reality when it comes to Jameis because you're going to go on a roller coaster, and I think this might be one of those roller coasters where it's not as fun as what it was last week. So that hardball defense is pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the Commanders versus the Giants for my first bet. Now, we talked about it, field goals, and it wasn't a high-scoring game. These two teams are different. since that week 2. And what I mean by that is you look at the Commanders teams, Jane Daniels getting involved with his offense and his how that's all working out with them. They got the deep ball with Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin wasn't much part of that game on week 2. But then you look at the Giants on their side. The Giants, Malik Neighbors, that was kind of Malik Neighbors' coming out game, right? This is where Malik Neighbors, seemed like every throw they were throwing it to him. Well, that's still how it is in the Giants. They're still just throwing the ball to him as most. But you got Tracy at the running back for the Giants. It's opened up the passing a little bit. Daniel Jones, what Daniel Jones are going to get. So I'm actually taking the over of 44.5 on this one. I think it might be a little more than just the field goals this game. I think we're going to see some touchdowns. And if anything, I think you're going to see the Commanders jump out to a lead, and it's going to make the Giants have to throw the ball, and I think that's going to lead to more points on the scoreboard there.
You know what? I probably would have went the opposite way, just for the simple fact that I don't know if how many points the Giants can score. I don't see. I don't see the Giants scoring a whole lot.
And that's why for me, it was just I think they have a better offense than they did on week 2, and they still scored as much as they did on week 2. I think they only scored like 12 or 15, but still, I think it's.
Yeah,
we'll see. What do you got for your second?
I think that the under. I just don't think Daniel Jones is so all over the place. So I just don't know if they've got enough weapons to score to keep up that total. I don't. I can see and I think Washington's defense is really good. So I think they're going to give him havoc. So
yeah, we'll definitely have to take a look at that one. For bet number 2,
Rams Seahawks. We've already kind of went over what what's all the DK Metcalf out. The defense. They're just not. Seattle's defense is not as good as what it was before. So I mean, it's just not. I think the Rams team is a lot better with Kupp and Nakua in the lineup. This game opened up as a pick'em game, but now it's the Rams giving 1.5. And the 12th man is not what it used to be there either. So that's kind of down as well. And I think that's a big deal. But with Stafford and Kupp back and with Metcalf out, I like the Rams on the money line.
I'm actually going to agree with you on this one, and I'm actually making it one of my bets as well. I think the Rams money line, I think it might have moved to 1.5, but I definitely like the money line on this one. Like, even if I'd be even more secure saying 1.5 on this one. I just think these teams are going in different directions. The Rams are going to start. This is their climb to win the division, and the Seahawks, unfortunately, have lost a lot of their identity without DK, and they better gain it fast, or it's going to be a real quick end of the year for them at midway of the season. So I like this. I'm at 1.5. What do you got for your third bet?
Colts and Vikings. For Indy, this is the first primetime Sunday game since 2022 for the Colts. Flacco's back in after the tap out from Anthony Richardson. So the coach decided, well, you just go ahead and sit out for this next game. Both teams are coming off losses. After that 5-0 start from the Vikings, they've dropped 2 in a row, but that mini bye they had, I think they're going to kind of come back a little bit on this one. With Flacco, I think Flacco gives the Colts a better chance to win anyway. And hopefully Richard could watch and sit back and watch and see what Flacco does. The Vikings defense has to step up and play better. They have to. The Colts are 7-1 against the spread, which is the best mark in the NFL this year. But you know what? The Vikings are 5-2 against the spread. With the extra rest, and I think this defense will get after Flacco. I like the Vikings giving the 5.
The Vikings giving the 5.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I hope it goes that way. I'm as a Vikings fan. Unfortunately, I will not bet on this game because as being a Vikings fan, but I need to see a little bit more because unfortunately I haven't seen much recently of the past couple weeks, and it's kind of made me a little frustrated. So hopefully we see that exactly everything you just said. I hope we get to see that and the Vikings take off this week and start showing their dominance back in the NFC North.
Yeah.
For me, I'm actually staying in the NFC North though, and I'm looking at the Cardinals versus the Bears. Now the Bears lose on a last-second Hail Mary last week, and it was one of these situations where a lot of scrutiny, a lot of noise. Now the Bears are 0-3 on the road, 0-3, and the Cardinals are 2-2 at home. So not really great records of the Bears being on the road and the Cardinals being home, with the Cardinals being the home team today. But I think the Bears bounce back. I think this is a game where they got to start showing. The coach is going to his, a lot of scrutiny has been on him recently. I think this is a game where they come back. It started out with 1.5. Now it's down to Arizona's giving 2 points. I would take
Wow.
the Bears money line on this one. You can keep the 2 points. Not many games end that way, anyways. 3 and you lose anyways. So I would take this one with the Bears money line. I just think they bounce back in this game. And Arizona, I just don't know what team this is yet. Maybe I haven't watched them enough, but I just don't feel like I'm that hit on them yet.
Yeah, we'll see what kind if this is a lingering effect of that Hail Mary for the Bears. And I hope he's got him. I hope he coached him up this week because he didn't definitely coach him up during the bye to play Washington. So he has got to, or he may be on the hot seat. This Eberflus, he has got to. They've got to come out on all cylinders. If they don't, ooh.
For sure. But that wraps up our episode 33. We have an all day of NFL and we gave you our bets. If you do bet or take any of our advice, please bet responsibly as we're just two goons talking about and the NFL and college football. But we want to thank all the fans as we had a transition in our personal life that kind of made it a little difficult yesterday for the post. We'll get everything out there today, and going forward, we will be doing well with this. But we want to thank everyone. If you like what we do, like, subscribe, or comment. But have a great Sunday, and we'll talk to you on Wednesday.